today we are talking about your farm. So, and we will dive into exactly what that is. As always, if you have any questions, thoughts, or additional items to share, please feel free to throw it in the chat box, raise your little Zoom hand, or just unmute yourself and interrupt me. If you're watching this on replay, you can throw your questions into the comments section. We usually are notified when that happens, and we will get back to you. All right, let's get started. If my page will turn slides today. Let's see if we can get it to participate. All right. Today, our learning objectives are we're going to talk about farm basics. What is a farm? How to choose a farm? All of those details. Then we're going to be covering how to take your neighborhood farm to the next level. Talk about developing systems around your farm to create consistency, how to add value to the homeowners in your farm, and ultimately how to dominate your farm. All right. So your farm. A farm stands for a frequent area of repetitive marketing. It is an acronym. Okay. For, I don't know, the first 15 years, okay, maybe 13 years of my real estate career, I thought farm just meant, we called it a farm because you go out there and you like drip on people and sprinkle people and plant seeds, and then it grows into transactions, which that works as well, but it actually is the acronym. So frequent area of repetitive marketing. And the most important thing to remember that you need to market to your farm frequently and repetitively, okay? Frequently and repetitively. There's lots of different types of farms that you can do, from demographic farms where you choose maybe to target move up homeowners or owners that have been in homes a certain amount of time, or maybe homes that have a certain amount of equity, or owners of a certain age, or a other demographic attribute. Okay, so that would be a demographic farm. The other main type of farm is what we call a geographic farm, and that's what we're going to focus on today. With a geographic farm, you can choose homes based on location. So it could be a specific neighborhood or a zip code. There's no wrong answer. A lot of people choose to farm the area where they live, but you don't have to, especially if you don't like your neighborhood, or if you are in a neighborhood where you don't feel comfortable spending your time, right? If you're like, I don't even want to live here anymore, then you may not want to choose your own neighborhood. The other thing that you may prevent you from choosing your own neighborhood, if somebody else is already farming that neighborhood, pick someplace else. The ideal size of a farm is about 400 homes. Okay, that being said, I often tell agents when they are first starting a farm to start with 100 homes. Okay, with 100 homes, the results are going to be a little slower, but it's going to help keep your cost and time requirements more manageable. And then over time, as you are frequent and repetitive on those 100 homes, you can work to expand your farm up. Okay, so I usually say, hey, take 100 homes, execute your plan with that homes for 3 months. Once you're consistently executing your plan with those 100 homes, then add another 100 homes. By the end of the year, you'll be up to your 400 homes. Or if you start slacking or realize, oh my gosh, once I hit 300, like that felt overwhelming to me, sit there at 300 for a while until you're consistent with that, until you earn the right and you've been consistent for 3 months, then move up in size. Okay, we don't want you to feel overwhelmed. So starting smaller and working your way up helps you to not be overwhelmed. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, I'm gonna assume everybody's yes. Otherwise, you'd be throwing questions in the chat box. Finally, most experts recommend a turnover rate of at least, thank you, Shauna, for your thumbs up, of at least 4.8%. Okay, the turnover rate is the total number of homes sold in the farm divided by the total number of homes. Okay, that's going to give us our percentage. Usually, your local title company can help you determine the turnover rate in your farm area, as well as they can usually pull names and information for owners in your farm. Okay, so like I know Old Republic actually has a farm app. Their apps are really cool. So if you haven't met with Sarah Suki yet, who's our rep over there at Old Republic, I recommend you reach out to her and give her a call, because Old Republic's app they actually have like a walking farm app. So number one, you can go onto their app, you can pinpoint and draw the area that you're thinking about farming. It'll give you the house count, the turnover rate, and then you can save it. Once you are actually farming that area, it'll ask you, you can actually say, hey, I'm in my farm today. It'll, you can tell it that you're going to walk your farm. You can tell it the order in which you're going to walk the houses, and it will put the houses in that order. And then it color codes the houses for owner occupied, not owner occupied, or it marks them as owner versus not, I think with a little X through it. And then you can make notes on that as you're walking your farm. So you click on the house, you mark whether they were home, you had a conversation or not. You can make notes as to what that conversation was. So it's pretty cool. Then you can export all that information and put it right into your CRM system. So theirs is probably the best walking farm app that I've ever seen as far as usability and everything. That doesn't mean the other title companies don't have an option. So if you use a different title company, reach out to your rep and ask them what they have in the tune of a farm app. All right. So let's go back to that 4.8% turnover rate. Okay. Most experts, again, recommend 4.8%. Okay. And I wouldn't necessarily say to not choose an area just because it has a lower turnover rate. It could be a newer home area that is maybe less than 3 years old. And so the turnover just hasn't started yet. It could have randomly had a high turnover rate 1 or 2 or 3 years ago, and it hasn't started turning over again. Or it could be like a super high-end farm where you only get 1 sale versus 4 per house there, right? You would be happy, right? So the commission's higher or the sales price is higher. So if you want to do a neighborhood, I wouldn't necessarily not do it just because it doesn't have the ideal turnover rate. Okay, hopefully that made sense to everyone. And then lastly, you want to choose a farm that someone else isn't already consistently working. So once you choose your area, go knock on some doors, introduce yourself, let them know that you're going to keep them up to date of what's going on in the real estate market on a regular basis. Introduce them to local business owners and share with them what's going on in their community and ask them if they have any other realtors that come by and already do that. Okay, that's a good way to get a temperature check on a neighborhood. Okay, let them know that you're going to help create community in the neighborhood and that you look forward to earning their future business and becoming their realtor of choice for both them, their friends, and their family. Okay, so first door knock, like we pinpoint the neighborhood. We go, okay, here's the houses. Go knock on some doors, introduce yourself. So remember, some of those things that you're going to introduce are that you're going to keep them up to date on the local real estate market. You're going to introduce them to local business owners, share with them what's going on in the community, okay? And let them know that you want to help create community in that neighborhood. Ask them if anybody else is coming by doing that for them. Okay. So recap, choose an area where you want to do business, an area that has the potential of around 400 homes, and know and be comfortable with that turnover rate. When looking at that turnover rate, if you're just going to start with 100 homes, do me a favor and look at the full farm that you're hoping to grow into for that turnover rate, because it's going to be really hard with 100 homes to get the turnover rate that you want. Give yourself permission to start with only 100 of those homes. And then once you've selected your farm, go introduce yourself. Okay, any questions so far? Okay. So now that we've identified your farm, let's talk about how to create a system to work your farm. Okay. First off is number 1 is we want to know our farm. You should be the neighborhood expert. You want to study sales for the past 12 months. You want to know the homes, know the floor plans, know who is moving in and moving out. Okay. What that would mean to me, just so you know, if this is my farm, I'm going to go drop off a care package for every house that I know somebody's moving into, whether it's a rental or a home that has sold. I am going to go drop off some sort of care package that introduces myself as the neighborhood expert and welcomes them to the neighborhood. I'm going to be the new neighborhood welcome committee. Okay. In addition to that, Take time to be in your farm daily. If you go for runs or walks, go to your farm to do that. Take your kids, take your dogs to the park. Just spend time in your farm. You want to know the streets, you want to know the parks, you want to know local businesses, you want to meet the local business owners, you want to learn the habits of the people in your farm. Okay, so spend time in your farm. The whole idea is to consistently plant seeds in your farm to produce consistent business because, again, consistency is key. Okay, while you're there, make sure that you are your authentic self and build trust by connecting with your farm consistently and follow through. If you say you're going to do something, do it, right? And then find opportunities to send handwritten notes and find opportunities to connect. So if you're hanging out at the park and you run into, with your dog and you run into another dog owner, be like, oh, do you live here in the neighborhood? Oh, perfect, right? Get their name, look up their address, send them a thank you card for interacting with you at the park, right? Make it fun, find those opportunities. Our goal here, again, build trust. All right, steps to farm success. Number 1, develop a monthly newsletter. We're going to dive more into the details of that shortly. If you decide that a newsletter is too much, number 1, I promise you it's not, especially because this is one of your main forms of lead generation. If this is what you're choosing, but then think about a way to create some sort of abridged version. And again, we'll dive into this a little bit more here in a moment. Wear your uniform. And this goes for if you're going for a run, you're going for a walk, you're visiting the park, whatever it is. Get some shirts and jackets made, embroidered with your name or your team name and the company. You want to be noticeable. In addition, your open house signs, your for sale signs, your uniform should all correspond in color and design. Okay, by uniform, I don't mean like, go get a polo shirt and you can only wear that and the certain pair of pants every time you visit that neighborhood, but make sure your brand is on there and that it's noticeable. So if you're running, you've got, your I'm your neighborhood expert on your back, right? With the same font and the same color. Maybe if you're at the park, you've got a hoodie or a sweatshirt, right? For me, it'd be a hoodie with your emblem and stuff on it so that people start to recognize you and that it draws attention. Okay. Another way to build success is to host regular charity drives for giving opportunity. People like to get involved in giving, so it's a great opportunity to connect with your farm and do something good for the community. So I would recommend starting maybe with like 1 drive per quarter, and then you may want to expand it if there's a lot of buy-in to like 1 per month. And if you're like, Amy, charity drives, what do you mean? Okay, well, it's like, we're February, we're getting ready to head into March. The food drives are stocked really good in the holiday season, but people forget about them, the food pantries and stuff this time of year. So maybe we do a food drive in the month of March. Maybe we do a drive for extra like torn blankets or towels for the Humane Society in April, right? So we can think of fun things like that to do depending on the month or the quarter. Where there's a need, you could do stuffed animal drives for new stuffed animals for the police officers in the area so that you can donate those to the police department. They keep them in their cars oftentimes, and then they hand them out to kids when they have calls where there might be a young kid involved, right? Just to help them make it seem less scary. You could do coat drives, right? You could do all sorts of fun things. Okay. And number 4, a step to success would be to host your open houses in your neighborhood. If anyone in your office has listings in your farm, offer to beg, don't offer, beg to host the home open every single weekend because it's going to add to your presence in that neighborhood. The neighbors are going to come by. Number 1, it's a lead gen, so you're going to get people and leads and transactions out of it. Number 2, the neighbors are going to come in. It's going to give you that opportunity just to reintroduce yourself. They're going to see your signs in the yard, which matches the postcards, which matches the newsletter, which matches your uniform. And they're going to start putting it all together that, oh my gosh, this person truly is the neighborhood expert. And look how hard they're working to get this other house sold, right? So we want to add to our presence. And then you want to reinvest in your business. Okay, what kind of items would help you offer value? And it may not be something that you're going to invest in tomorrow, but it may be something that you start setting aside a little bit from each closing in that neighborhood or all of your closings to build that presence and build value. So maybe your end goal is, gosh, I would like to own a box truck where I can help people move in this neighborhood. Okay, right? There's people that are out there doing that. Or maybe you're going to invest in garage sale signs that owners can borrow when they're having a garage sale that are, you know, brought to you by Shauna Stockton, right? Whatever it might be. So create a plan today for future reinvestment. So not everything has to happen today. Some of those things may need to be pricing it, seeing where that sits, and then setting aside, figuring out, oh, how many closings do I need in order to make that happen? So just think about what that might be. It might be that you decide to invest in a golf cart that's branded to you so you can tootle around the neighborhood in your golf cart. Who knows, right? Sky's the limit. In addition, I would recommend that you belong to your farm. So in the long run, if you don't already live in your farm, you may want to buy real estate in your farm. You want to be connected to your farm area through ownership, either with your primary home or potentially future investment properties. Okay, but I would recommend that you belong to your farm. It just gives you more buy-in. All right. So let's talk about how to level up your farm and what this actually looks like. Okay, first things first, number one, choose a community or neighborhood. We've talked about this a couple times already, but choose one that you're passionate about. That's why a lot of people choose the neighborhood that they live in or where they want to live, because they are passionate about that neighborhood, the safety, the security, meeting the neighbors, right? So we talked about choosing a neighborhood. So depending on how your city is laid out, you may choose a full zip code. In the Solano County area, you know, the zip code is like half the city, which may be too big, even as a farm is expanded. I'm going to tell you half the city is too big. So, but in other states and cities, the zip code is specific to areas. So I would look at like neighborhoods or general areas. You know, we talked about choosing 400 homes and starting with 100, but the big picture is that the farm could become your main source of business outside of your database and repeat and referral business or listings, leads from listings. So we want to be able to expand it to give you the number of closings that you want as your business continues to grow. So you may want to be able to grow it up to like 1,200 homes or 2,000 homes over the next 3 to 5 years. Okay, so in addition to identifying that area that you're passionate about, think about an area that can grow to become larger. Okay, so that's the first level up goal. Second is to create a newsletter that's going to wow your people. I would make my newsletter 4 pages. Okay, you can start smaller, just so you know, you can start smaller. It would have a page for each of these areas that we're going to cover here in a second. You could start smaller, or because like a 4-page newsletter might be kind of expensive, especially starting out, this might be one of those things that we want to reinvest so they don't have to go find more information. But at the beginning, you could start with a postcard size. We've talked about how expensive those are. They're not very expensive at all. I think it's like for a 2-sided postcard, it's under $1 per card. So we could start with that, and then we could have like a QR code on there that takes them to other locations for the full story, right? So we could send them to a website or the neighborhood social media page or whatever it might be, right? So we could start small with a postcard. We can touch on all of these items, but then to read more, they have to go someplace else, which will help you capture their information. So that might be a good strategy anyways. So page 1 or section 1 should be a letter from the editor. That's going to be you. You are the editor. This should include current market conditions, seasonal well wishes, market area matrix, homes for sale, active in contract sold homes. Okay. You could also, you know, you could do a whole blurb on market conditions. Page or section 2 should highlight a local business owner. Okay, it could be a business owner that lives in your farm, or it could be a business located in your farm or nearby that farm. Okay, our goal here is that we're going to go interview and meet some business owners and highlight them in our newsletter. With that, you may even want to offer some sort of discount or coupon or something if the farm person goes and frequents that business during that month, right? We want them to answer, like, what do they love about what they do? Not just what kind of business do they run, what do they sell, but why did they choose that business? You want to dig into the personal side of that person. If they're located in the farm, why did they choose to locate the business in that area? And again, ask for a coupon or voucher to include in that newsletter. And then ask also if you can drop off copies of the newsletter in their business over the next year, right? So that way every month we've got a few extra copies, we can drop those off. Okay, make sure to add that business owner to your database. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, page 3 is we want to highlight like a local student or family in the neighborhood. Someone who is excelling in sports, academically, someone doing great things in the communities. I would focus in on seniors or juniors as far as students go. Because those parents are potentially becoming empty nesters and they may be looking to move in the future. Okay, reach out to the parents first to ask for permission. I would bring in a photographer, so get a relationship with a photographer to capture a photo and include a few family photos as well, because now we're offering added value because we can pass those family photos on. They're not necessarily going to go in the newspaper or the newsletter, but you can take those family photos and give them to the family. So now they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, not only did she highlight our student, but we got these cool family photos, right? So partner with a photographer. And you can even put, in each newsletter, like photos sponsored by, and then that photographer's name and contact information so that they're going out to 400 new families per month with the potential of business. Okay, and again, make sure that family gets added to your database as your circle of influence. Okay, and you could also choose, like I said, to not just highlight a student, but you could highlight an owner in the neighborhood, someone who's doing good things in the community. Okay, page 4 should be your keeper contents. What can you include that is going to make them not want to throw it in the trash? We want them to stick it on their fridge or their bulletin board or whatever they have in the house, on their kitchen counter, wherever they have their information. So it could be activities or something of value. So it could be like a puzzle, like a crossword puzzle or a Sudoku puzzle. It could be the local school sports schedule. It could be a list of community events. This last page is also a great place to add your real estate logo or banner. Okay. So page 4, something of value, something that's going to make them want to hold on to it. It could be a recipe, who knows, right? So make it fun, make it something they're going to want to hold on to. Questions about the newsletter? Okay. And again, if like a 4-page newsletter seems overwhelming, it seems like it's going to be really expensive to print that up and get it and distribute it. Not a big deal. We can do like a postcard with a QR code for read more about this family or this business or these people, right? Get more neighborhood details here, right? Whatever that might be. So with a link. Okay. Delivery. For the delivery, in order to level up our farm and get the return that we want out of it, I don't want you to just send it and forget it. Okay. You can choose to mail the postcard or the newsletter, or you could drop it off on their doorstep. Personally, I would recommend dropping it off, and not just dropping it off, but actually knocking on each and every door, because it gives you more opportunity for connection. That being said, you can drop it in the mail as well. Okay. And we want additional touches, especially for putting it in the mail. So I would want to contact the people in my farm before and after delivery. Like I said, especially if it's going in the mail, or if I'm just going to drop it on their porches without knocking on their doors. So you can work with a title company or a third-party vendor to get the phone numbers for the owners and occupants in your farm. Okay, the goal here is that in a TCPA, that's your do not call list compliant fashion, you're going to call the owners or use something like SlyDial, where it's going to send them a voicemail message. Okay, the day before your delivery, it might be, hey, it's Amy. It's time. It's that time again. In a couple of days, we will be delivering the name of, newsletter. I totally forgot to touch on this. When you create your newsletter, come up with a catchy name. Don't just call it Amy's newsletter. If you're in North Vacaville, you might call it like the North Vacaville News, or if you were in Cheyenne, you want to come up with something catchy for the neighborhood name. So they know that it's specific to them, not just all of Vacaville, and that it's something catchy and fun. So whatever you come up for the name, you're going to say, hey, in a couple of days, we're going to be delivering whatever the name of that newsletter is, the North Vacaville News. Be sure to check out the featured article on one of our stellar students from the neighborhood, Iris, right? So whatever that is, point out something they want to dig into that newsletter for. Okay. Then after the newsletter is delivered, we're going to call through again or send another voicemail message 1 or 2 days after of, hey, it's Amy again. I hope you enjoyed this month's newsletter. Some of your neighbors called and asked for evaluation of their home. If you want a current update on the home's value, call me or text me be sure to leave your name and address, and I will get that pulled up for you, right? Or find another reason. We may not want to leave that every month because then they're going to be like, this is just a script. So we may want to change it up every few months with what that message is, but we want it to have a call to action. So the first message before should have a call to action of why they would want to open the newsletter. And the message after is some sort of call to action of why they would want to reach out and contact you. Okay, if you're calling versus using a voicemail system, the voicemail system's super simple. We open it up, we plug in the phone numbers, and then it goes, within an hour, it's all in their inbox. We record it and then they send it off. If we're actually making phone calls, we may want to call the week before delivery, and then the week after or a couple days after, because it's going to take us a little bit longer to get through those phone numbers. Okay, so you're having conversations that might take a little bit longer. So there's my recommendation for delivery. If you are hand delivering it, you may want to make note of who you didn't have conversations with and then call those people or drop those people a voicemail message just saying that, hey, I dropped our monthly newsletter off on, I dropped this month's copy of the North Vacaville News off on your doorstep. I wanted to make sure you got that. Please make sure to check your front porch for that newsletter. If your copy disappeared, feel free to reach back out, right? So whatever that is. So you do something like that. Okay. So we want additional touches. We're trying to build relationships. So the more often that we can have conversations or we can reiterate who we are in the neighborhood, the better off we're going to be. All right. So the goal here is that we're adding 12 business owners to our database because we're connecting with business owners on a monthly basis. Okay, so we're adding those to our database and our circle of influence, as well as we've now given ourselves 12 places to drop off newsletters over the next 12 months. Okay, so this is going to be like a rolling 12 months. If I interviewed you in February, I'm going to drop off, and for that March issue, they're going to get copies of the March issue starting in March, and they're going to get them until next March. And I may even say, hey, are your customers enjoying copies of the newsletters? Would you like me to keep dropping these off, or is it something you're throwing away at the end of the month? And it may be even something like after 6 months, you ask them that question, right? Because we don't want to be wasting money on something that's not valuable to them and their business patrons, but it could be a good opportunity to drop that off. Okay, in addition to those business owners, you've now added 12 homeowners to your circle of influence because we've highlighted them or their child. Right? So now they're not just a person in our farm, they're part of our circle of influence. We've spent time with them, we've interviewed them, we got them pictures. It's fabulous. You've completed 12 deliverable touches with the newsletter delivery, and you've completed 24 additional connections with phone calls, text message, or voicemail message before and after each delivery. This should lead to listings taken. This should lead to business. Okay? Now, if you want to bring value to your farm, here's another way to add value, is we want to offer them something that keeps them excited when they hear your voicemail or read your newsletter or answer the door. So in addition to being recognizable, we want to have a system in place for smart fixes for them before selling to maximize that sales price, right? So or just to help them around the house. So having your vendor list available is going to help anybody who's like, oh my gosh, I've got, my water heater just broke. Do you have somebody that can help me with that? Absolutely. Here's my list of vendors. Check out the plumbers on page 2, right? So super easy. But when we get ready to list those homes for sale, I would recommend partnering up with a handyman or a contractor, something that's going to allow you to offer services to maximize that equity. So it could be taking care of somebody who's willing to take care of pre-sale inspection items, right? Or quick facelifts like paint or flooring, right? Make sure you have connections for those people. Build relationships with those contractors and see who you know that if you've got a listing that needs a little bit of work done, that they might be willing to be paid the final amount at close of escrow. Okay. Or as you gain business in that area, I might set aside just a repair fund of I will front the money for the repairs potentially, and the client can pay me back when they close. That way, if they don't have money to spend out of pocket, we can get their home sold for the most amount of money. Because let me tell you, if I've got a homeowner that's like, oh my gosh, Amy came in and there was a bunch of like little nitpicky things listed on that pre-sale home inspection. She came in and she got it all fixed for me so that my house really did shine and we got more money because of that. Right? Your name's going to spread like wildfire because we don't want to just capture business in our farm. We want them to refer you to the other neighbors inside the farm, but also their other friends and family outside of that area. In addition, we want to make sure to have consistency in our brand. Okay. Your newsletter, your postcards, your social media, they should be consistent in colors and fonts and look so that people can recognize your stuff anywhere. And then you want to make sure that you get belly to belly. There's nothing that builds a relationship faster than getting in front of people. So drop off those newsletters, knock on their doors. Not only is it cheaper than mailing, but it gets you in front of the owners and it gets you having conversations. If you're doing open houses, don't just promote the open house in that neighborhood. Invite people to it. Let them know that, hey, the neighbors wanted you to stop by because they thought that you might like to see the improvements that they've done on the house, and you might know people who are looking to buy or sell in this, are looking to buy in this neighborhood. You want them to come by and see your product, right? You want them to meet you and see how you sell properties. Okay. And then don't forget that you need to focus on client experience. So have a system and process that really brings wow. So that once you get a listing in your farm, they talk you up to the other neighbors, their friends, and their family. We want to create community in that farm so that you can dominate it. Okay. So the reason that we talk about 400 homes as the average farm size is that at a 4.8% turnover rate, which we said was the ideal turnover rate, that's going to give you, there's going to be 20 homes on average. 20 homes are going to sell in your farm each year. Okay. It's considered a good farm if we capture 20 to 25% of that business, which is 4 to 5 sales. Okay. Hopefully those sellers are also going to buy, so you can turn that into 8 to 10 transactions or some referral transactions, right? That's the ultimate goal. But let's just say 4 to 5, that's not going to get me to my goals. Okay, so we want to level up our game so that we don't just get a few listings. We don't want to just capture that 20 to 25% of sales. We want to win 50% market share or more. Okay. And this really, truly, it all comes down to community. So remember the newsletter, we connected with a business owner and someone from the neighborhood. I would also recommend not just interviewing them in person and like writing like a written interview, but I would film the interview and I would have a social media page for my farm. That way I can direct people there to see the full interview. You can also post additional content there to drive people to your social media where you can interact with them on a daily basis. I would make 2 groups for my farm. Okay, the first group, I would make a public group so that people moving to the area can see what's going on in your farm. I would make that a page. So if I had North Vacaville, I would call it, North Vacaville or whatever. North Vacaville neighbors or something like that, where, and I would make it just a page so that people moving into Vacaville, when they're searching, looking for stuff in Vacaville, it's popping up and they're seeing, oh my gosh, this seems like an amazing community. This is where I want to live. And oh my gosh, this agent seems like she knows what's going on in this area. I should call her because I want her to sell me a house in that neighborhood. Okay. The second group is that I would make a private group for the people that actually live in your farm to create that community. And it doesn't necessarily have to be private, but it should be like your goal is to create a community group where they can say, hey, we found a lost dog, or hey, somebody's dog keeps pooping on my lawn. If you want to see this done well, I would say Kimberly Moses in her office, she has a great neighborhood page for her farm, and the people that are on that page are interactive. They post all the time. So it gives her that extra interaction, that extra touch. In fact, there was somebody that posted there the other day that was like, hey, our tankless water heaters, has anybody flushed theirs? Do you know somebody that does that? So great opportunity for Kim to jump in there and post her recommendation of somebody that can flush her water heater and what the approximate cost is, right? So super easy there to just be the go-to, the expert in that neighborhood. In those groups, you want to be the go-to for information, just like we just talked about. Don't forget your vendors list for all the things people may need in the area. And you want to make sure you're posting consistently in there. It doesn't have to be 3 times a day like we talked about on our personal social media, but you want to have regular posts in those groups. Okay, so in addition to that, so in addition to our newsletter, in addition to our social media groups, I would recommend that you send something out snail mail. So if you have a new listing or there was a closing in the neighborhood, send out postcards to your farm. You could also back up that newsletter with those postcards as well. You could even send out maybe like the market summary each month to their mailboxes so they can see the houses that went into contract, those that sold, and those that are active around the same time each month. In addition to that, make sure you do a walkthrough and view every single listing that comes on the market that isn't yours in your farm. Know the market and know the homes available. Okay. If there's a country club or some other club associated with your farm, join it and be part of it. Be there regularly. Get face-to-face with people at every opportunity. In addition to that, I would say host every single open house in your farm, even if it's not yours. So if your brokerage allows for it, even offer to host other agents' homes open that are in your farm area that aren't part of your brokerage. I want to be the face of real estate in my farm, right? My goal is to take the burden off every other agent from having to do anything with their listing. I'm going to get it sold for them. Okay. And in addition, another way to help dominate your market is to host neighborhood events. Okay, you may want to consider hosting or sponsoring activities like movies in the park, maybe an annual garage sale, food truck nights, play dates for moms with young kids, family fun days, rent bounce houses and large slides, bring in vendors, DJs, make it fun, keep the kids occupied so that the adults can mingle. I would personally aim for at least one event per quarter, or maybe even like a monthly food truck night with different food trucks, right? So one major event and then something that gets us connecting on a monthly basis. And I would make it, I would try to make it consistent so that like if you decided to do a monthly food truck night, it's always on the 3rd Thursday of the month. Or, you know, if you're doing an event per quarter, it's always on the first weekend of the month or whatever that might be. Just try to be consistent because it helps it be predictable for people in your neighborhood. You can also think outside of the box and be creative. You could create things like a high school scholarship award for somebody in your neighborhood each year. You could support youth sports. You could host and or share community events. You know, put flags in the yards for Veterans and Memorial Day or 4th of July, host an Easter egg hunt or Santa pictures or pet photos. You could do a 4th of July block party or bike parade. You can host National Night Out. There are so many opportunities to really just plug in and build community inside of your farm. Another thing is you can help people in the neighborhood be the first to know about new listings that are going to come up in the farm before they even hit the market, so that they can refer people to you and help pick their neighbors. So remember to make it fun. This should be fun, and you can start small and you can have a plan to add to it. So maybe you're like, okay, Amy, this was totally overwhelming. I'm going to start with a newsletter. And I'm going to be like, I think that sounds like a good idea. Start with the newsletter. Then, my step 2 is after I'm consistent with the newsletter, or after I get to all 400 homes with that newsletter, then I'm going to add in 2 events per year. I'm going to do a national night out because that one's easy, and a garage sale, right? Or whatever that is. So we can start small and we can add to it. If you're going to do flags in the yard, just so you know, buy them early. They don't have to be giant. Get a pencil sharpener if they've got wood, because sometimes the ground, especially like around July or September, it's hard. It hasn't been raining like it has right now. So if you sharpen those wood sticks that the flags are on, they go in the ground a lot easier. There's my little bonus item for today. All right. Any questions so far about the steps, actions that you can do inside your farm? The sky's the limit, but we want to do as much as possible. Okay. So here's what your weekly, because again, I promised everyone with each step that we would talk about what it looks like on a weekly or monthly basis. So our farm isn't like an open house or social media where we necessarily need to be doing it on a daily basis, but here are some action steps that you may want to work into your weekly actions. Okay, as with all of these, I'm assuming that you're taking Sunday, Monday off. Okay, for the rest of Vacaville is going to be like, what happened to all the real estate agents on Sunday and Monday? They're all having days off now. Okay, everyone's working all the other days. So I'm just going to do this Tuesday through Saturday ultimately as our 5 days, but just know you tweak it based on whatever your schedule is. So on Tuesdays, I might go into my farm and see what homes are there that I can hold open that next week. And that way I can start promoting that open house throughout the week. I would follow more like closely to like an open house plan at that point. Wednesday might be my door knocking day, right? Where I go and door knock a quarter of the farm. Oh, sorry. I'm going to door knock on Wednesday. So on Tuesday, not only am I going to identify the open house, I'm also going to send that message through, or that text message or that phone call to people that I'm going to deliver the newsletter to on Wednesday, that I am going to drop off that newsletter to be looking for it, right? That message that we talked about earlier in this lesson. So Wednesday then, so that's Tuesday, identify homes, send that message or make those phone calls. Wednesday, I'm going to go door knock a quarter of my farm. So if my farm is 400 homes, each week I've broken it down to 100 homes. Okay, door knock a quarter of the farm. If your farm is 100 homes, you might decide to do them all in 1 week, or you might be like, Amy, 25 is enough. So each week I'm just going to door knock 25 homes. That allows me to add to it each week and not feel overwhelmed. Makes it more manageable. So Wednesday, go door knock. Thursday, you're going to post in both your private neighborhood group and the public-facing social media pages. Make sure you're posting there at least once a week, or at least here we can schedule those posts out for the next week. Okay, that's going to take them through the weekend. You may want to let them know about upcoming open houses. You may want to let them know, I would kind of have a theme to this on a 30-day rolling 30-day period, that, hey, every Thursday I post the new listings that have come on the market, or Friday I post the new listings and the open houses. On Monday, it's some sort of a tip. The first weekend of the month, they get a yard tip. The second week of the month, they get a house care tip. The third week of the month, it's a tip as to, who knows what else. But so you could make it like a rolling calendar so that you have that drawn out ahead of time. So all you have to do is create those posts and throw them into that group. Okay. And again, we don't have to post daily. You need to be posting at least 1 time per week. And I would recommend probably 3 posts per week. 1 maybe real estate related, the other 2 not real estate related, just house or community related. Okay, that's Thursday. Post in those groups. Set up your posting for the next week. Each week on Friday, you want to identify and tour any new listings in the neighborhood. Okay, this is also a good time, with the listing agent's permission, to record a video walkthrough of the property and then promote that listing on both your social media groups. Okay, let people know about the new listing. They can see the video and see the walkthrough. We do need permission from the listing agent though, so please hear me on that. Number one, just let them know that, hey, I'd like to preview the home for some potential buyers. Are you okay if I video it and then also help you promote it on social media? Okay, most people are gonna be like, yes, please help me get this house sold. Then Saturday is your event or open house day. So if we don't have an event going on, we could be hosting an open house in our farm. And if we are hosting an event, then don't do the open house, just host that event. So that's kind of what I would recommend as weekly actions. And again, you can add to this maybe each week if you have a food truck night or whatever that is, then you need to work that into your daily routine. But again, it's important to make sure we take our systems and processes and that we write them down and that we keep track of them so that we have a repeatable, scalable system. Okay, now on monthly actions, right? So here are some other actions that I work in on a monthly basis. Week 1 might be a good time to identify the business owner and student to interview and schedule that interview time for the next week. And this is going to be like week 1 of March. I'm identifying a business owner and a student to interview for my April newsletter. Okay, we're always operating there a week or a month in advance. Week 2 would be when we're going to interview those people identified the previous week. We're going to compile that interview for our newsletter or edit the video interview for posting on our social media. Okay. So now that we have the interviews done, we can then go to create the newsletter. So week 3, I would create the newsletter and prep it for getting mailed out or getting printed and mailed to you so that it can arrive to you before the month begins. Our goal here is that we have our March newsletter before March starts so that week 1, we're knocking and getting that information out. Okay. Now you might say, hey, Amy, what I'm going to do is at the end of the month, after all the closings have happened, I'm going to finish the newsletter then and order it. So I'm actually only going to walk my neighborhood 3 out of 4 weeks of the month. That's totally fine. Whatever works for you and whatever system you want to put into place. Okay. Week 4, we want to take that content from the newsletter that we have for the next month, and we want to turn that into social media posts. We're going to take videos from the interviews and we're going to edit them for posting as well and put together a posting plan for that next month. And then also you want to prepare any promotional materials for any events that you are hosting. So I would recommend for any events that you're advertising the month prior for those events. So if I have a neighborhood garage sale happening in July, I'm going to start promoting for that neighborhood garage sale, depending on where it falls in that month. I may start promoting for it in May. So we have, most of May and all of June for that second week of July garage sale. That gives people time to sign up for it. And then as it gets closer, I'm going to shift it from, are you going to do the garage sale to a promotion of the garage sale? Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? How that could roll for you and what that might look like on a weekly basis and then on a monthly basis as well? Okay. I'm going to assume yes. You guys are all so quiet. We need to get you guys interacting more, but I hope you guys found this lesson useful. I finished on time for the first time in a week. So there you go. You can have a few minutes of your day back. Unless you have questions, I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions. But I hope that you guys do a farm. I think a farm is a great way to build community. It's a great way to get out there and build business. The one thing that I will note is that the turnaround on your farm is not going to be tomorrow. Okay, we're not going to go hand out newsletters and expect to get a listing this month. It usually takes 6 to 8 months to start getting a return from our farm. So don't expect it immediately. Iris, I'm glad you found it very useful. I hope you guys put this into action. I am a big fan of the farm. All right. Fabulous. As always, I didn't mention it today, but you should have 5 methods of lead generation. The first being your database, which we talked about in the month of January. You can go back and rewatch all of those videos. They're all posted on the YouTube channel, ready for you guys to rewatch over and over and over again. The second should be leads from listings, which we talked about the first Monday of February when we did kind of the general overview of lead generation. The last half of that session is talking about how to generate those leads from your listing, how to follow up with them, what those interaction plans should be. And then you're going to choose 3 additional lead gen options. Okay. So far this month, we've covered social media, we've covered open houses, and we've covered now the farm. We will be taking next week off. There's no classes next week. It is snow week in Solano County, where a lot of the kids don't have school. So in addition to that, I was expecting a grandbaby to be born on Friday. So I was taking that week off so I could spend time with my grandbaby, but my grandbaby actually came like a week and a half early. So I've been spending time with him already. But I'm still taking next week off. So no classes next week. When we come back for the last week of the month, we will be talking about business to business lead generation, as well as events and seminars. Thank you, Iris, for your congrats. I'm very excited about it. But anyways, so there you go. That's the plan for the rest of the month. You guys have a fabulous day, and we will see you all not next week, but the Monday after.